A very good evening. Welcome to the Premier League season review for the 2024-25 season here in LFS. The final day was yesterday, and what a final day it was, confirming the positions of all 20 teams, 3 relegated, 1 champion, and 6 teams overall in the Champions League, 9 in total in Europe next season. Quite incredible for the Premier League. We're going to go through it all. We're going to rate each of the 20 teams out of 10 based on how their Premier League season went. So they may have done other exploits, and many did this season, but that will not come into the rankings. It will just be their Premier League form and how they ended the season in the table, basically, and how they were expected. Then tomorrow, we'll be doing another live tomorrow afternoon where I react to my pre-season predictions. I've got to tell you, there are some that I do not want to remember, some that I do remember, and I wish I bloody didn't remember. But let's get through it then. So we're going to start from the top to the bottom. No, other way about. The bottom to the top. So we're going to start with the relegated sides. We're going to work our way up the table, of course, to the champions. We're going to rate each team out of 10, and I'll tell you why. I think they've had the season they've had, and kind of why the rating it would be as harsh or as kind as I feel that I have given it. So we're going to start, of course, with the team that finished rock bottom, and I mean, there's only going to be one answer to what Southampton's season has been, and that's a 1 out of 10. I mean, I couldn't give a 0, but if I could, I definitely would have. But 1 is the lowest that I could give, and there's no question as to how bad the season was for Southampton. You know, a terrible season overall, but we could have predicted it. You know, I think nearly everybody predicted Southampton would one be relegated, and I think a lot of people also predicted they would be bottom of the league. I don't think many predicted they would be 12 points bad, but we knew they weren't going to be able to stay in the division. And, you know, 12 points, just one more than the Premier League record for the lowest points finish ever. I mean, that is as bad as you can get it for any football club. But I think they got to the position they did. Of course, they obviously weren't good enough. The quality of the team wasn't good enough. But I think one of their biggest problems, Southampton, this season was the fact that they had a terrible tactics system. So they played a way that would have got them good points and good results in the Championship, but they didn't adapt to the Premier League. They didn't adapt to how they have to play at a level that is so much higher than the Championship. They could play out from the back and take little touches and play about with a goalkeeper in their own 18-yard box in the Championship because they would get away with it a little bit more. But in the Premier League, you aren't afforded that comfort. You aren't afforded that time on the ball, especially in and around your own 18-yard box with the way teams press so intensely now. So it was always going to be a massive mistake. And I remember saying earlier in the season, I said that is going to be his downfall, Russell Martin and his team, because they refused to change. I remember, I don't know if it was the first weekend of the season against Newcastle, and they lost 1-0 Southampton away at Newcastle, and the goal came from them playing out from the back, and it was referenced to Russell Martin after the game. Oh, well, look at how this system's got you conceding a goal, and he turned it around into a positive and said, but look at how many times it worked. And it actually, from that first moment, made you think, this guy doesn't understand. I mean, I get he's a Premier League head coach and he's got that kind of status, but he didn't understand the fact that that was what led them to the mistake. Rather than the 20 times that it did go well, you're going to be highlighted for the one time it doesn't go well, and you concede a goal from such a position and such tactics. So I think it was the stubbornness and the refusal to change the tactics which massively hindered Southampton, and it just capitulated them back to the Championship. And by the time Russell Martin was sacked and Ivan Juric came in and they made all these changes, it really was too little too late. They knew they were going down. It was just basically avoid that horrible record that they did in the end avoid of the lowest points finish ever. So they did avoid that. But Ivan Juric actually did not too bad when he came in, despite the position he was put in. But the damage was done far too early in the season for Southampton. And that's why they get a 1 out of 10, because you can't give a team that finished almost Premier League record for the lowest points finish ever. You couldn't give them any higher than a 1 this season. Moving up to 19th, Ipswich. And you would think that I would give all the relegated sides a 1 out of 10 because they're relegated and there was no real relegation battle this season. But I think, excuse me, if we give Ipswich a little bit more credit from where they come from to where they got to this season, and I've given them a 4, which I think is pretty kind overall, because I think, yes, again, they were like the other two relegated sides. They were never in a battle. They were always out of it. You knew from pretty early on, probably less than halfway through the season, you knew they were going to get relegated. But what I want to give context to is the fact that they came from League One. You know, they got back-to-back promotions with Kieran McKenna in 2 seasons. 2 seasons ago, they were in League One. Last season, they were in the Championship, and they got promoted automatically from the Championship last season to the Premier League. That is a meteoric rise. That is a rise that is incredible for a football club like Ipswich. And yeah, maybe they feel that they deserve to be in the Premier League. Obviously, they didn't have enough quality, I think, overall, to stay in the Premier League. But no, I just think at a 4 out of 10 for them, I think is pretty fair compared to the other two relegated sides, because I think overall it was the quality that was lacking, and I think it was one of those ones where the team maybe didn't catch up with the level of the division. We talk about that back-to-back promotions, how amazing it is for them, but you also need the squad to catch up. You need that quality threaded through your squad, and I just don't think they had that this season to keep them in the division. But again, they had good players, you know, Liam Delap, one of their high scorers, and Pip to be a good Premier League striker for next season. Whoever he might join in Ipswich, I'm sure will get a good bit of money out of whoever they were to sell him to. But I think Ipswich can come back. I think next season they're not in a position where they're going to get relegated again. I think they have the stability of Ipswich and Kieran McKenna as the manager to come back up. But 4 out of 10 I think is pretty fair for this season. Get a few comments in for the moment. High Football News says, what's up? This is pre-recorded, isn't it? No, it's not. It's live. And Kay Hardy says, Arsenal fan, are you judging teams' Prem performance only, or do tournaments count? So I was thinking about this when I was doing my ratings. I'm preparing this earlier today, and I was contemplating whether or not, and then I realised, well, Spurs, Palace, Newcastle, they would all get 10s because their seasons they've won trophies. So I didn't think it was fair to then go, well, they're just getting a 10 because they've won a trophy. I wanted to give it a fair representation of how they ended the Premier League and how they did performance-wise in the Premier League. Of course, Tottenham, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, all winning trophies for the first time in many's a year, and obviously for Crystal Palace, their first time ever. I just thought we do it based on Premier League position and how their Premier League form was this season, and then we'll give the context of they've won a trophy, but it doesn't come into the rating. But yes, the rating itself is off their Prem performance rather than any other trophies involved. So Ipswich got a 4, moving up to the final of the 3 relegated sides, and this one I'm not happy about whatsoever. This is a team that, yes, I predicted before the season would be relegated, but this is a team that has incredibly disappointed me this season, and that's Leicester City. I mean, this is a Leicester side that probably 4 years ago, won the FA Cup. This is a Leicester side that were competing for Europe under Brendan Rodgers a few seasons ago. Now, I know they got relegated and they were in the Championship and all of that after that. But this is a Leicester side that have expectations a lot higher than being a yo-yo club between the top 2 divisions of the Premier League and the Championship. This is a team and a club that wants to be in the top flight, and I think should be in the top flight season in, season out. But they didn't do anywhere near enough to earn it. You get Southampton. Southampton, in my opinion now, are going to be in that cycle of they're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. Ipswich could be in that mix too, but look at where Ipswich have come from. Those 2 other sides probably were the favourites to go right back down. If there was one of the 3 teams that I thought, oh, well, maybe you could stay up, it was Leicester. And because of the history of the club have reached some good heights in the last number of years, but they showed no fight whatsoever. And I said, based on the club's expectations, to fail to put in a fight to stay in the division is the worst thing you could do, because they just weren't in a relegation battle at any point in the season. And, you know, we got to Christmas and you knew who the 3 were going down. And for Leicester, that's damning because of, you know, you look at the players they have. I know Jamie Vardy's not in his prime anymore, and he's getting on in years, and obviously now left Leicester after so many years at the club. But he tried his best, wasn't good enough. The forward players, your Patson Dakas, your Steffi Mavrodidis, your other attacking players for Leicester, some good players in there, nowhere near good enough. Midfield, nowhere near good enough. Wilfred Ndidi, look, I mean, one of the top midfielders in England a number of years ago. Where has he gone? Completely dissipated. The defence is not too dissimilar to the Leicester defence of a number of years ago. It's not that they've been completely racked of all of their good players. There are good players in that Leicester side, and they just didn't show up. They just weren't good enough all the way throughout the season. They sacked Steve Cooper so early, and then they decided, oh, do you know what? Let's go on a Jolly Rancher and get Ruud van Nistelrooy, who has no experience in the Premier League, and has managed Man United for 2 games in an interim, and he won 2 games at Man United, so he must be good. That's not a way to run a football club, and I think the fans this season have been incredibly frustrated with how things have been going at Leicester, and we've seen that at times this season in their home games at the King Power. You could see that there was real anger within the fan bases, with the ownership and with the club and the way it's going, because Leicester should be a Premier League team, and the way they've put out this season, I think it's the players to part as well. They just didn't do enough. Ruud van Nistelrooy was a terrible appointment in my opinion. I don't think he was ever going to save them. He looked clueless every single week. I mean, he led them to an English Football League record of 9 games in a row losing without scoring. I mean, you have to be some special crappy manager to do something like that. But no, completely awful from Leicester this season. A massive disappointment for me. And it just felt like they lacked in every single department. The goalkeeper tried his best. Again, not good enough. The back 4, not good enough. The midfield, not good enough. Not enough goals in the team. Not enough quality off the bench. Even when they needed it, they couldn't bring anybody with real great quality on to go, oh, well, this player can win you a game, or this can change the game. Just nothing from Leicester this season. And, they deserve to get relegated, if you're honest with yourself. And the 3 teams that went down, I think they're the team that's disappointed the most, because they probably would have expected to have a chance at staying up, but they offered nothing all the way throughout the season. So they get a 2 out of 10. Not quite a 1, because I think 1 is the levels of Southampton of 12 points. I think a 2 is not much better, but it's you're relegated and you've been bad, but you're not Southampton bad. Jonathan says, hello again, I'm a Manchester United fan, can't wait for our score. You won't have long to wait for the position Man United finished this season. So that's the 3 relegated sides done. Next is Spurs, who finished 17th. Now, to preempt this, as I said to Kay Hardy a moment or 2 ago in their comment, this is not based upon their overall in Europe, European exploits or cup exploits. This is basically down to the 38 Premier League games and where they finished in the table. So based on Spurs' league form alone, their season, they get a 3 out of 10. Now you can see the Europa League in the bottom corner. They did win the Europa League, and congratulations for that. It would have made it a 10 out of 10 if they'd have finished much higher in the league. It would have been much better for them. But this is on their league form alone. Of course, winning the Europa League gets them a trophy. It gets them all of that and all the plaudits. Fantastic. But in terms of league form, I think this is the worst Tottenham team performance in the modern era for Spurs. And that's saying a lot, because Spurs have been known as the serial bottlers of leagues, of titles, of any sort of positivity in that football club over the last decade and a half. They have been known as the serial bottlers, but this is awful. It was just awful. I mean, to lose 22 league games, only the 3 relegated sides lost more than Spurs this season, so they're in the right position for how many games they lost. Absolutely dreadful throughout the season. And, what really baffled me, and I can bring the Europa League into this because it helps the argument that I'm making, but tactically, I said it before about Russell Martin's tactics, not refusing to move away from this playing out from the back and really kind of high intensity, kind of risk-taking football when you don't have the quality players to do it. Spurs played their way, yes, under Ange Postecoglou, didn't move from that, but then when it came to the Europa League final, and said, "Do you know what? Let's just back away from all these principles that I said I was going to stick to 100%, and let's find a way to win a game of football." It's really bizarre to me that he's left it to the very final game of Spurs' season, or the second last game to the Spurs' season, to change the tactics in a final to win a game of football when he's avoided that whole idea all season because he's wanted to instill his football. Instead of working about results, he could have got a good league finish and the Europa League, but he's completely sacrificed the league to go and win a Europa League, and congratulations for winning the Europa League, no doubt about that. But it baffles me how in one competition you can change your way of playing football to suit winning a game, but in the league form you can't do that as well. Surely it would make more sense to be able to kind of use your tactics for each and every individual game to try and get the best result out of each game, rather than sticking to one blueprint and going, well, if this works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't think that's a very sensible way of managing, and I think he knows it too, Ange Postecoglou, because why else would you change in a Europa League final to get your team a win? Because they sat back, a low block, they defended Man United, and they defended them incredibly well, by the way, and they hit them on the counter-attack. I mean, it's not that that's a bad way of playing football. Look at Nottingham Forest. They've got European football because that's the exact football they've played. It's not that way of football can't win you games, because it certainly can. If that was what Ange thought was going to get them the best results, why wasn't he doing it in the league? And he was sticking to this kind of fantasy way of playing football that not even some of the top teams can play consistently and get great results out of. So it's a bit baffling, but as I said, 38 points from a 38-game season for Spurs, a new low, even for Tottenham. But again, as I said, the Europa League success is their overall assessment, and winning a trophy for the first time in 17 years. I mean, Ange probably has saved himself on that alone, and I think rightfully so, because I want to see how he does next season. I think if they continue in the league form that they did this season, I think he'll be gone by Christmas. But if now that he's won a trophy, I think he might have earned himself a chance to go, yeah, we earned a trophy, now let's try and kick on, let's try and build something, spend the summer, use the summer to try and get something, and then build for next season and see. But as I said, their league form has to improve. If it doesn't improve, Ange will be gone by Christmas no matter what. Spurs don't take anything lightly. Mauricio Pochettino was sacked months after he brought Spurs to a Champions League final, so they can be ruthless when they want to be, Tottenham. And I think without the trophy, he would have been gone at the end of the season. But the trophy, I think, might have just bought him the summer and maybe the start of next season before they need to worry about something else. But who knows? Who knows? So 3 out of 10 for Spurs' league form alone. Then we move to 16th is Wolves, a team that at some points, I think, went under the radar in a sense. They kind of had that below par season overall, because at one point at the start of the season, maybe they were kind of flirting with relegation, and they were really open at the back and really, really struggling under Gary O'Neill at the start of the campaign. But since Vitor Pereira's come into the club, he's given them a glimpse of what they're actually capable of. This is a Wolves side that, obviously under Nuno and under previous years, were up competing in European places. I'm not saying their squad's the same quality, because I don't think it is. There are a lot of players there that aren't at the level that they were, but there are still some very good players in that Wolves squad. And I think the results that Vitor Pereira's got out of them since he's come in a system he is playing that is good to watch, I think shows the quality of what Wolves can do. And that's not just kind of playing a lovely little system, back 3, back 5, playing nice counter-attacking football. They're doing it in all areas. They're better defensively, they're conceding less goals, they're scoring more goals under Vitor Pereira, and they've got some good players, of course. Matheus Cunha and Jørgen Strand Larsen, of course, this season's done very, very well up front. So there are players in that Wolves squad, and amongst a couple of midfielders as well, and the wing-backs, there are some very good players in the Wolves squad. So I think 16th is below par for what they're able to do. I think they could be a very good mid-table side and maybe make a push for Europe next season if the continuation of the many places continue. But I think they could make a push for Europe next season, Wolves. But again, as I said, they've improved under Vitor Pereira. Next season, as I said, they need to kick on, get maybe more mid-table, because the team are certainly better than 16th. But then again, the links in the last few days that Matheus Cunha is going to be moving on elsewhere. Possibly Man United could be his destination. Could be a body blow, but of course Wolves' recruitment, they've recruited some very good players in that squad in the last few years, and I think they could find someone to fill that void. But again, it will be incredibly tough to fill the void of Matheus Cunha, who's been probably the beating heart of everything positive about Wolverhampton Wanderers this season. So I think I'll give them a 5. I think it's a fairly respectable season. It's a bit below par for where I think they can be, but I think 5 is the foundation has been put there by Vitor Pereira. Now they need to improve on it, and we'll see what they can do next season. Moving on to a team that are higher than we expected them to finish, considering where we were in the last few weeks. And the last week that Man United have had, they are the team in 15th, and they get a magic 2 out of 10. I said 2 was the level of a relegated side when I mentioned Leicester. Well, yeah. What do you say about Man United? I mean, what do you say that hasn't already been said this season? Their lowest points finish, their lowest points tally in Premier League history for the club. I mean, 42 points, 15th in the table. Before this season, Man United hadn't finished outside the top 8 in Premier League history. They hadn't got less than, I think, 56 points was their lowest points tally. I mean, to finish 14 points behind their worst ever. A season after they broke that record. I mean, they're only going one way, and that's bad. They're going down, and you couldn't think it could get any worse for Man United finishing outside Europe in mid-table. But they're actually finishing in the bottom 6 in the Premier League. I mean, that's mental. Until the final day, they could have finished 17th. They could have been the worst side in the league without being relegated. This is Manchester United we're talking about here. As Gary Neville likes to say, this is Manchester United. But they've lost 18 league games this season. 18 league games. I mean, less than Spurs, but and more points than Spurs, and 2 places higher. But Ruben Amorim himself called them the worst Man United team in history. Maybe. He did add that at the end of it. I don't think there is a maybe. I think from the years of maybe them getting relegated, which was probably, 50, 60 years ago now? Look at where they are. They are not too far away from that. You get rid of Bruno Fernandes out of that squad, and I genuinely think they would have been in a relegation battle this season, because he is so instrumental in how they play and how the good things that come out of Man United. Bruno Fernandes, I think they could have been in a relegation battle this season. Their defence is terrible. I think I couldn't name any of the players that started for Man United at the weekend. I wouldn't rate any of them at any level. I mean, Noussair Mazraoui, I mean, he's decent, he's okay. The centre-backs are terrible. I mean, without Lisandro Martinez and what we saw of Rafa Varane as well, who was pretty decent, these are players that they're missing out. I mean, Lisandro Martinez injured, but the other players in the squad, they were there 5 years ago and they weren't good enough. The Harry Maguire's, your Victor Lindelofs, what are they still doing there? What? Like, genuinely tell me, what are they still doing in that football club? They weren't good enough 5 years ago. Why do you think they're good enough now when the Premier League's only gone up and got more competitive? That's why they are where they are. They've recruited awfully, Manchester United. And, I mean, even the midfield, I mean, your Eriksen's, I mean, I don't even know, Casemiro, I mean, he's like a dead man walking, Casemiro, at this minute in time. I mean, what on earth is going on there? They sold half of their attack force, and they wonder why they can't score goals. I mean, they sent Marcus Rashford to Aston Villa. They got rid of Antony off to Real Betis, and look at how he's flurrying at Real Betis in a Conference League final with the Spanish side. I mean, they got rid of a lot of good quality. I mean, Jadon Sancho. There are forwards there. I mean, Xerxes and Højlund I don't think are good enough, but their attackers aren't anywhere near the level. I mean, Ahmad and Garnacho are probably the 2 bright sparks for them, but overall, Man United are in dire straits, and they're in a terrible position. And as I said, the only positive I could say about them this season is Bruno Fernandes. Once again, he's probably been the only positive Man United have been claimed to claim out of that team in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And it's quite ironic that he's being linked with a move away this summer to Saudi Arabia, to the Saudi Pro League. I mean, mental. I mean, if I was him, I would get out. I don't think that's the mentality he would have, but certainly I would have. And I don't know why anybody on planet Earth, any football on Earth, would want to go to that football club right now, because do you think you're going to get success? You'd have to be deluded to think that would be the case. I'm sorry, but you've got to be honest. 2 out of 10 for Manchester United. Absolutely dreadful season from them. We'll take a little breather for the moment. Do get your comments in. Do let us know what you think. What you would rate each of these teams out of 10. Because we're about to move on. We've got the bottom 6 done, dusted, and we've already got 2 huge sides in Spurs and Man United who've had torrid seasons overall. They are in the bottom 6. Moving on quickly then to West Ham United, who've had a pretty mediocre season under 2 different managers, Julian Lopetegui and Graham Potter. Neither one better than the other, if you're completely honest with yourself. Overall, the squad they have is actually pretty decent. I think there are some very good players in that West Ham squad, especially attacking players. You know, you talk about Jared Bowen, Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paqueta, amongst them. They have good players in that West Ham squad. I think there are areas they will need to improve. Of course they will. I think midfield is an area, and defence is an area that I think West Ham can certainly improve. But if you look at the 2 managers and compare them, it's not that either of them are actually worse than the other. They're both just not great. If you look at it, Julian Lopetegui lost 10 out of 22 league games in charge, or 22 games in charge. Graham Potter has lost 9 out of 18. So basically, the 2 managers have lost half of their games in charge this season. Both managers aren't able to get maybe the full quality out of West Ham this season. I think the squad is lacking a little bit overall, but even at that, they're not getting the right ideas out of the team that certainly David Moyes could do last season, and they've just not been able to do it anywhere near well enough. But who knows whether Graham Potter will be the manager next season? Who knows? But I can certainly say something needs to change, and something the hierarchy of West Ham need to decide whether they will keep with Graham Potter, because his record isn't much better than Julian Lopetegui, who they sacked halfway through the season. So it's something they need to decide, and there are certainly areas of the field that they need to improve. West Ham defence and midfield are definitely areas to improve. But again, a mediocre season, mid to low table, not really kind of threatened at any point in any stage this season. They were toying around 14th to 17th all season. Pretty mediocre. 5 out of 10 for West Ham, but they're capable of a lot more, I can certainly tell you that. Right, our first real high score, because we've not actually went higher than a 5 so far, and not can you expect it, and we're talking about the bottom 7 sides in the league. But this is a side that I think, in the position they finished in 13th, are a side that have a lot of promise for the future, and that is Everton Football Club. A very emotional season, of course, for Everton, having to say goodbye to the old lady Goodison Park after 133 years at the stadium, and of course almost poetic that the return of David Moyes after 12 years, their most impressive modern manager in my opinion, certainly the one to say goodbye to Goodison with Everton and then lead them into that new stadium, which quite a funny new name. Hill Dickinson is not a name that you would want to rush to a stadium for. And I actually heard that Hill Dickinson, the owner or the CEO of the law firm, is actually a Liverpool fan, which is quite ironic. But yes, so David Moyes leading them into that new stadium. But on the pitch, I think what you would expect from a David Moyes team. You know, we've seen David Moyes at various different clubs over the years, West Ham especially. And one thing you would say about West Ham is he did well with them defensively. They were a very good defensive side, and I think that's exactly what he's made Everton. Very strong defensively, very solid, very compact, very able to defend their own 18-yard box in the air and on the ground and crowd out areas and really stifle the opponent. And that's David Moyes down to a T. But they've got one thing that is a big problem for them, and that's scoring goals on a consistent basis. They don't have that star striker. They don't have that star attacking forward that can get them a high amount of goals in a season to carry them through. You know, they've still got Dominic Calvert-Lewin not doing the business, still injured nearly all the time. They've brought in Beto, who's done a decent job. But do I think he's going to carry Everton to the top half of the table? I don't think so. He could be a good option, but I think they do need to recruit in that area. A centre forward, I think, makes Everton incredibly better. And maybe a midfield. We saw Carlos Alcaraz in that final game of the season away at Newcastle yesterday, and he was incredible. I watched Match of the Day last night, and Carlos Alcaraz was quality. I mean, if they can get him fit and in that 10 role, they can certainly help them a lot in an attacking sense. But I do still think they need a centre forward to Everton, and certainly some recruitment in the top half. In the top half of the field, and a top half finish wouldn't be too far away. But 7 out of 10, because considering where they've been in the last number of years in a relegation battle, of course they were never going to be in a relegation battle this season with the 3 teams that were relegated, but 7 out of 10, a very, very good campaign in the grand scheme of things for Everton, and a very emotionally charged campaign. Moving on to the team that finished 12th. Again, let's reiterate, this is a side that have won the FA Cup for the first time in their history, a first trophy. This is not reflective of that, because it is a 10 out of 10 season overall for Crystal Palace. But if you just extract the Premier League out of it, I think 7.5. And I think that might be a little bit harsh. I think I was teetering on the edge, giving them an 8 because of how good they've looked. But I think, as I said, like Tottenham, Crystal Palace's campaign is going to be based on their FA Cup win. It's going to pale into insignificance, the league campaign, compared to that cup triumph. It will. And winning a major trophy for the first time in the club's history, Oliver Glasner, the head coach, has already been lauded as probably one of their best managers ever in winning them a trophy, and why wouldn't he be? But again, 12th, you could probably say, was the most Crystal Palace position. I mean, I think at times, you got to say, over the last few seasons, I think Crystal Palace have probably reserved 12th. They go to the Premier League and go, get yourself ready, we're going to finish 12th again. Just reserve that spot for us. And they're right again. They finished 12th again. It's the most Crystal Palace thing I've ever seen. But again, I think overall, Crystal Palace finishing 12th, I think is positive. Very positive. I think they ended last season when Oliver Glasner came in really strongly. And then they came in this season, they had a little bit of a wobble at the start. They really struggled to get into rhythm at the start. But as the games came in, the kind of games heated up and got more important, actually. As the games got more important, Palace actually stepped up to the mark. And that was what was quite impressive for me, is that when it came tough, Crystal Palace stepped up and went, yeah, we're going to have to go a level higher. We will go a level higher. We will prove that we can be better than what people expect us to be. So I think a 7.5, I think, is respectable for Crystal Palace, because there is promise there. They've got really good players. They're playing a good system. They're strong defensively. They've got a really solid midfield and some very good young talents coming through. The squad, they've got a good manager. They just won a trophy. They can be a foundation for the future. So all of these boxes are being ticked. And I think if they'd have finished in the top half, this would be an 8.5 for them. And I had them as my surprise package this season. I'm just looking back at my predictions there on the wall there beside me, and where did I have Crystal Palace? 9th. I had them finishing 9th. I was a little bit optimistic, but they weren't too far away from it. Overall, Crystal Palace, I think they had a points record as well. They beat their points record for the Premier League tally for their history. I mean, what is it? 53 points. I mean, that's Palace have never got above 50 before, I think it is. So quite incredible as well. So they're putting all these markers down and going, well, why wouldn't you say they can improve for the future? And a 7.5, 7.5 is where you think they're a good side, they're doing the right things. Maybe they can improve next season. Maybe they could go a step further next season. And I think Crystal Palace can under Oliver Glasner. And they've got European football. I mean, who doesn't want European football? And certainly for Crystal Palace, what an incredible achievement it is for Oliver Glasner and that club from South London. And I think they had their trophy kind of celebrations today inside Sellers Park, which was, I think I caught a glimpse of it a little bit earlier on. So congratulations to Crystal Palace, the FA Cup winners. Moving on to the team that rounds off the bottom half of the table in 11th is Fulham. And again, as Marco Silva put it yesterday, a season of improvement is basically how Fulham's season can be described, because that's the way Marco Silva put it in an interview yesterday. A club that has, again, some very good players. There's some good quality players in the squad. I think their attack's quite nice. They're quite good to watch as well, Fulham, the way they play football. and their defence is strong. I mean, Anthony Robinson is one that gets named a lot because of their high performance this season, and certainly his high performance with Fulham. But I think overall, he will probably get a move if this summer, if not to a top Premier League side, certainly a side chasing Europe. But Fulham can be that. I do believe they can, and they're a side that I've seen this season. They're capable of pulling off a good result. You see a side and you go, I think maybe Brentford of a number of years ago when they first came into the division, of a side that could go to a big side and go, we don't care how good you are or how big you are. We're going to show up and we're going to play our football and we're going to beat you. And I think Fulham sometimes have that arrogance. It brings me back to the Liverpool game. Liverpool chasing the title. They go away to Fulham. They're unbeaten away from home this season. The champions, or the champions-elect it was then. And Fulham destroyed them. They destroyed them. They made Liverpool look silly when they showed up. And yes, I get it. You can have an off day as a football club. And Liverpool had an off day. They probably had an off 25 minutes and they were punished. And that's what I say about Fulham. When you're not reaching the top level against them, they can punish you. Even the champions, the team that finished at the top of the table, Fulham can go, yeah, and what? They're the first team. They were the first team this season to beat the champions in their own stadium, to beat the champions who were on the road. I mean, maybe that's a credit to Liverpool's away form, and it certainly is. But for Fulham to be the first side to do that, very well done this season. And it's not something they will hang up. Oh, we're the first team to beat Liverpool for an away form this season. But look, they're capable of that, and you can see that under Marco Silva, and his coaching is just quality. I think at times it's actually massively underrated how well Marco Silva and how much Marco Silva gets out of that team, and how well they perform and how good they actually are. I think sometimes it is a little bit underrated, and sometimes his coaching is underrated, and the job he has done with Fulham, and again the consistent improvement. We see them improve season on season. That's something to be appreciated because of how well they've improved and how they continue to improve. And again, I give them a 7 because I can see improvement. I can see there's ups, and there's certainly a move where they could chase Europe. They could be in that fight for Europe in years to come, and they've got some good players, some young players. I think again they will go again in the summer, try and recruit some top quality, some top talent, and we'll see what they can produce next season. But I have no doubt with Marco Silva as the head coach, I do believe they will get some quality results, and they will be right in the mix next season. Moving up to the top half then, so into 10th, and it's a side that were battling for 8th up until yesterday, is Brentford. They finished 10th, and I give them a 7.5, 7.5 out of 10. And just like Marco Silva, look at the coaching of Thomas Frank. Another positive campaign for them. As I said, another side quite like the a lot of the mid-table sides that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. He's incredible coaching. The incredible coaching of Thomas Frank, and the way he coaches his players, the way he plays football, the way Brentford work. It's just all incredible plays, and the way they do it is just so impressive for a club that isn't the best hasn't got the best facilities in the country, or isn't one of the top teams in the country in terms of their stature or their history or winning big titles. But they do the best things right. They do the basics incredibly well, and they get every bit little ounce out of their players. They give their all every single season, and that has to be commended massively. They're probably one of the first teams leading the whole data charge. The data decision making, and sometimes you can't argue with data, and quite a lot of the times you can't argue with data because the numbers don't lie. But I think that's part of their success, but also Thomas Frank's ability to garner a team spirit within Brentford and go season in, season out with not the top budget, not the top amount of recruitment or the ability to battle the top level, to be in the position they're in and to do what they're doing is just incredible, and just really impressive. And they've got some quality players. I mean, two players that stand out. Their two most productive footballers is Brandon Bomo and Johan Visa, absolutely wonderful players. And I think Brandon Bomo in the draw with Wolves yesterday, I think he got the 20 league goals. I mean, wonderful for a club like Brentford to be having a player like that at that level. I mean, they had Ivan Toney before him, and they were all there together. And look at what Brentford were able to do, and look what they're still able to do after that as well. But consistency, coaching, that's the summary of Brentford. And yeah, another positive campaign. They had the chance to the European football right up until the end, and why not? 7.5, incredible. They can certainly push it next season if they keep it up. But something tells me Brandon Bumble might not be staying at Brentford. I think he might be pipped by one of the top clubs, but you never know. We will see. Moving on to Bournemouth now, who finished in 9th. I've given them an 8 out of 10 because of, again, how good their season's been. And we're in 9th, and I'm giving a team that finished 9th 8 out of 10. I think that's, one, how competitive the Premier League's been this season, and two, how well a lot of the teams have done to get to the positions they're in. You know, usually 9th would be, oh, well, yeah, you had a chance at European football, but you didn't quite get there. It's a good season, but it's disappointing. There's that mix. 9th, Bournemouth would be incredibly happy with another mid-table season, pushing European football, battling all the way throughout. And yes, they've got quality players, but I would say mixed overall in context. Or mixed in context is what I'm trying to say. But overall, another very positive campaign under Andoni Iraola. You know, at one point they were probably nailed on to be one of the top sides battling for European football this season, and certainly maybe in the position Forest were in so early. But Bournemouth kind of dropped off a little bit as the season went on. But I think they didn't get certain results as well. Individual results didn't go their way, and you know that's maybe a little bit of an issue, but overall, to be competing for European football for Bournemouth Football Club, who've never been in Europe before in their history, to be able to do that, and you know they had a cup run as well, they had a good cup run, all of that combined, I think 8 out of 10 for Bournemouth. But again, I think a measure of a club is how much interest there is in the players that club holds. And Bournemouth this season have had 2 players that are of top quality in their defence that are being pipped for the biggest clubs. I mean, Dean Houston's already going to Real Madrid, and Milos Kerkez at left back, another one who is an incredible player at left back, and what a job he's done at such a young age at 21. 2 top class talents that are linked and are moving to other European sides, to other sides maybe in the Premier League or in Europe as well. And that's all credit to Andoni Iraola, the coaching, the recruitment staff, the whole way the club is run. Everything combined, I think the measure of a club and how their seasons went is how much interest there is in their best players. And that's the sign of a very, very top club and a club that's doing very well. And I think that's where Bournemouth need to be, an 8 out of 10. Fabulous season for them. And I hope they can kick on next season. 8th is Brighton. And I've given them an 8.5 out of 10. They're reaching a very, very good level. And I think I would put them in the same conversation as Bournemouth, in that they're doing all the right things, they've great coaching, all of that, whatever thing I said about Bournemouth. For Brighton, the reason I would give them half a point more than Bournemouth is that, 1, they were in a chance of European football finishing that 8th place, and 2, their first season under Fabian Hürzeler, the Premier League's youngest manager, Fabian Hürzeler, what a season they've had, finishing 8th in his first season in charge. They put themselves in the box seat for European football, if that was to be the case in 8th place. It ended up not being, but they put themselves in that position. They did the job to get there. And I think their quality defensively, how good they are, how strong they are defensively. I mean, Jean-Paul Van Hecke, one of the most impressive players this season at centre-back in the Premier League. Got really quality players up front. I mean, Danny Welbeck's got miles of experience. João Pedro being linked with a move away. Karu Mitoma, Yankuba Minta, amongst them. Other players, Jack Hinchelwood has done very well very recently. Some other young players. Their midfield looks very good. I mean, Carlos Baleba, I couldn't remember his name there, but Carlos Baleba, incredible player in midfield. They've got really good fullbacks. They're just all over the pitch, Brighton. Incredible players, good squad, good quality, very good experience, and under a new manager in their first season chasing European football. They've only been in European football once. They thought it was a hard act to follow, following Roberto De Zerbi, but look at what Fabian Hürzeler's done. They don't get European football in the end, but look at how close they came, and how good of a season they've had under his first season. You know, we talk about managers in their first seasons, and we'll get to one very shortly at the very top of the table. But Fabian Hurtzler, quality. And I don't think he was rated in the kind of manager of the season, but in my opinion, he's in my top 3 manager performances of the season for how incredible and how well he guided that side. And, you know, just remarkable again. And, you know, credit to Brighton. What a season they've had, 8.5, and they can certainly push for Europe. They've got the quality, they've got the players, they can certainly push for Europe next season if they continue on the trajectory they are, and we know they can unearth unbelievable talents and get great profit for them. They've done it many a time before. Look at the players that they've sold on to other clubs around England, around English football. I mean, just wonderful what Brighton are doing, and amongst the mid-table clubs, your Brightons, your Bournemouths, your Brentfords, your Fulhams, Crystal Palace, all of these very good, well-coached mid-table sides, and they're all in competitive positions. Moving to our European sides then, and sides that did get Europe, all of the top 7 getting European football. Of course, Nottingham Forest are the team that finished 7th, and we will give them a 9.5 out of 10, the highest rating so far of any of my ratings, and you can understand why. They've got Conference League football, European football for Nottingham Forest. I mean, what? I mean, despite spending the majority of the season in 3rd, and they were up in that Champions League battle, but contextually, based on the predictions and expectations this season that Nottingham Forest were put under, I had them going down. I had them relegated. They finished 7th. Madness. And I wasn't alone in saying that they would be relegated. There was many others that joined me on that conversation, but considering the expectations at the start of the season and where everybody predicted them to finish in the top 7, to finish getting European football, that is a massive achievement for Nuno Espirito Santo and his group of players. What a job they have done this season. The first time in over 30 years that Nottingham Forest have qualified for Europe. Wonderful stuff. And they did it a different way. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about Spurs. Excuse me. I said about the different way of playing football. There's not just one way of being successful playing football. Nottingham Forest have embodied that this season, because that counter-attacking, high intensity on the break-in transition, deep defensively, sitting back, dropping off, not having any of the possession, but doing it with great success and proving that there are many different ways of playing football and being successful. It's not just dominate possession, 4-3-3, high-intensity press, counter-pressing, high line, kind of goalkeeper flying all around the pitch at the back, playing out from the back. That's the genuine basic that everybody goes for now. Nuno Espirito Santo and that Nottingham Forest side have gone, well, yeah, you can play that way, but we don't want to play that way. We played a different way, and look at the result we still got. And I think they would have got a 10 out of 10 for me if they'd have got Champions League. If they got Champions League, that is a whole other level, and it's just out of the realms of possibility, and that's why I would have put a 10 out of 10. But a 9.5 is they still got European football, they still exceeded everybody's expectations tenfold, and they are in a position until the final day where they could have qualified for Champions League. I mean, they did fall at the final hurdle, but who cares? They've still got European football. They're going to be having European nights at the City Ground next season. No one at the start of the season in August would have said, yeah, that's possible. You would have been an idiot. You'd have been called deluded if you'd have thought Nottingham Forest were going to get European football this season. But what a job they've done. And considering they finished 17th last season on 32 points last season, what a job Nuno's done. Absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And we move on from 7th. Not a high score until probably our last team. That's probably one of our highest scores of the season, and no doubts why. Moving to 6th place, Aston Villa are next. I give them an 8.5 because I think overall a very good season for Aston Villa. They qualified for Europe for a second season. Obviously, it's not the ultimate prize of getting Champions League for a second season, but they've got European football at Villa Park again, Europa League football next season. Still a very good achievement, and it's again that continuation of such an amazing job that Unai Emery is doing. We've so many great coaching kind of examples in the Premier League this season. So many coaches that are performing so highly with the players that they have. We talk about your Andoni Areolas, your Oliver Glasners, your Fabian Hertzlers, Nuno Espirito Santo, Unai Emery amongst them. All of these coaches that are getting so much out of their sides, and they're doing it really, really well. It makes the Premier League so entertaining to watch. And the football Villa play, really incredibly impressive. They've got a very good squad. I think they've got one of the top managers in Europe, Unai Emery. What more could they want? I give them an 8.5. They would have got higher. They probably would have had a 9 or a 9.5 if they got Champions League for a second season. Incredible. If that was the case, they would have got higher. But I think 8.5, Europa League football. They're still in Europe after the season they've had. They were in Champions League. They got to the knockouts. I think it was the quarterfinals of the Champions League. I mean, wonderful stuff. What a season they've had. But based on their Premier League alone, 8.5 for Aston Villa for me. Moving on to the top 5 then, the teams that did get Champions League football. And we start with Newcastle United. And I give them a 9 out of 10. Now I have to reiterate, just like Crystal Palace and Tottenham, it is a trophy success that will be the top of the bill in reviewing Newcastle's season. But, forget about that. Winning the Carabao Cup, incredible. First domestic trophy in 70 years for Eddie Howe. I'll get to that in a moment. But based on their Premier League season alone, qualifying for the Champions League after how competitive it was this season, I think is incredible. I mean, we couldn't have predicted where Man United and Spurs would end up, so maybe that's helped them a little bit. But overall, they still had to do the job, and maybe they kind of squeezed through in the end, losing on the final day and hoping others would lose as well, helped them. But I think what a job Eddie Howe's done, and as I said, a domestic trophy in 70 years. I mean, when's a statue being built? That's the question you need to ask. When is Eddie Howe getting a statue at Newcastle? What a great achievement. Champions League and a trophy. I mean, could the Newcastle fans have asked any better this season? No, I don't think they could have. What an unbelievable job he is doing, and again, another fantastic coaching display. How well they are coached, it's just something. And that 70-year wait for a domestic trophy ended this season with Eddie Howe, and that will immortalise him with Newcastle fans forever, and certainly solidify him in the club's history, because what a job he has done. And Champions League again, 9 out of 10 for Newcastle. I actually don't know how it could be any higher than that. 9 I think seems fair, because I think 10 you go, well, I think actually, do you know what? I would have given them a 10 or even a 9.5 if they finished second, which at one point, leading into that Arsenal game just last weekend, if they'd have won that Arsenal game, they would have went above Arsenal and headed into the final day in second. So there was a realistic chance that would have been the case. So I think if they had done that, 9.5, 10, no doubts, but finishing 5th, I mean, and slightly stumbling over the line a little bit, I give them a 9 out of 10, and they still got the job. They still got a job done at the moment. Right, moving up then again to 4th place, Chelsea, and I've given them an 8 out of 10. Again, great job from Enzo Maresca getting Chelsea back in the Champions League, where they haven't been for a number of years now. And Enzo Maresca with a young squad, the youngest squad in the Premier League, the youngest average starting 11 this season in the Premier League, and to create such a consistency to compete and to be in that top 5 and get the top 5 finish and finish 4th, is wonderful. And I expected it to be a season where Chelsea would improve from where they were last season, and they would maybe push for Champions League and maybe just miss out. I thought they would fall away at the end and maybe not get over the line just to the lack of experience. But the way they did it this season, it couldn't be more opposite to that. Their consistency, their calmness, their cool heads, their ability to get results over the line, their incredible form to the end of the season is title-winning form in that. They were winning nearly every single week, Chelsea. And the final day win at Nottingham Forest epitomised that. Going away to a tough stadium in a position where you have to win to guarantee Champions League. The way they did it, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And the fight, the determination in those final 30 minutes when Forest were pushing. And yes, Forest maybe didn't look like they were going to score, but Chelsea's defending yesterday, I said it in the commentary yesterday, unbelievable. And they showed us just kind of what a season they've had and what a season they've produced. The consistency for such a young side is impressive, and Enzo Maresca deserves so much plaudits for that, and his squad certainly do as well. Moving to the top three now, and the next two sides are going to get pretty low scores, if I'm honest. Moving to third place, Manchester City, and I've given them a 5.5 for their season because it's a poor season for Manchester City standards overall. No trophies, a trophyless campaign is something that's pretty uncharted territory for City recently, certainly. It's not often that Pep Guardiola doesn't finish in the top two of a league season. Of course, he finished third, so he's one step out of it, but it's not often he doesn't finish in those positions. And when you give yourself such high standards, when you fall away from those standards, they will be much more highly examined and much more highly examined in much more detail because of your lack of performance and your lack of output. And I think that's, honestly, it's shocked us what happened to Manchester City this season. And I think genuinely, I didn't expect them. I didn't think they would win the title this year. I didn't predict them to win the title. But I thought they would be very much in a title race, and they would be up there, and they would be competing, and they would give it a real good go and a massive good go. I didn't think 5 in a row was possible, although I didn't think 4 in a row was possible. I didn't think 3 in a row was possible. But there we are. I didn't think 5 in a row was possible this season. I just thought someone else would get it. So that's where I would stand. But again, no one could have predicted where Manchester City and what their season would entail in that, going out of the Champions League so early, not really competing in the cup competition, obviously getting to the FA Cup final, obviously, and losing that, which is a massive disappointment for them when they had a chance to win a trophy in a season that's been well below par. But the Premier League form has been so inconsistent, so unable to kind of go on a good run, and the runs of old that we saw of Manchester City where they could rhyme off 15 wins in a row. And of course, look, we have to mention the injury to Rodri. Of course we do. And that will be highlighted. But the overall drop-off in all areas, they've scored less goals, they've conceded more goals, they've had less kind of possession, they've had less quality in the final third, less shots. All of these things add up. And it's not just down to Rodri that's the case. It's an overall drop-off of the City team. I think their recruitment hasn't been incredible over the last number of years. I think their wingers are nowhere near good enough for Manchester City. If they want to compete for the title, they need to give so much more output, and they're not good enough at the minute. Those wingers, and they're not competing and not contributing enough. Losing Kevin De Bruyne will be something they'll need to fix, something they'll need to get someone in. I think the midfield does need a bit of a reshake at City a little bit more. Pep Guardiola is the manager that if he could get 11 midfielders on the pitch, he would. And, that's his dream. I don't think they've got enough top quality midfielders anymore, Manchester City, to do what he wants to do. And Rodri is undoubtedly there, and I think Nico Gonzalez could be a very good player as well in that midfield. But your Bernardo Silvas, your Ilkay Gundogan, your Kevin De Bruyne's, they're not all at the peak of their powers anymore, and you can't keep hanging on to that. And I think they will need to make movements in this summer, Manchester City, if they want to be back to the top again. And of course, they got Champions League football, so that's what's brought them up a little bit. They would be, if they'd missed out in Champions League this season, it would be 2-3 out of 10 for their season, because it would have been disastrous if they didn't get Champions League, and that was the minimum. But I think the fight to get the Champions League, a week or so ago, they were out of the top 5, so they got 2 wins in a row, 2 big wins in a row against Bournemouth and away at Fulham to solidify that. And I think there is that hunger there in parts of the squad. There is hunger there, there is quality there, no doubt. And their fight for success is still there, certainly in Pep and certainly what we've seen. But I think the recruitment, they need to get back to getting top players, to getting the best in class, and we'll see City back to the top again. But this season, as I said, massively, massively underachieved for where and what they are. Speaking of massively underachieved, let's speak about Arsenal, who have finished second, and I've given them just a little bit higher of a score than Manchester City, and I gave them a 6 out of 10. And I'll tell you exactly why I gave them a 6 out of 10. Another runners-up season for Arsenal. They finished second for the 3rd consecutive season. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's the saying, the old adage that at the moment is the embodiment of Arsenal recently. Not able to get over the line, not able to do the job, not able to step up when they need to. in the big moments. The target was set at the end of last season that Man City were their main rivals for the title, Arsenal. That was clear. With Liverpool having that change with the manager and not many other sides up competing, your Chelsea's or anybody else in that mix for the title. No one else was ready. So people predicted and people thought, oh, it's going to be, excuse me, I have an itchy nose, Arsenal Man City title race. People had that in their minds. Massively. But when it didn't come to fruition, and the point was made, if Man City weren't there, Arsenal were expected to be the team to pick up the pieces. They were the team to take the title. They were the team expected to step up and go, well, if Man City are not doing it, we're going to do it. They're going to do it. It's going to be Arsenal's title. But once again, they're failing to get over the line. They're failing to do the job that's probably expected of them at this point. If I'm 100% honest, and I saw people talking about this in the last few weeks, and I saw it in podcasts, and I saw all the talk about Arsenal, whether they still progressed this season or have they regressed. If I'm 100% honest, I think they've regressed slightly. I think they've gone backwards a little bit, because I think they're not as blistering going forward. Yes, they're incredibly defensively. They're very, very strong defensively. And they don't need to have that solid same back four to be as strong defensively. They defend as a team. Incredible. And they get good goals from midfield. But their attack is not good enough. Their attack is not blistering enough to be in a title race. They're not scoring enough. They're not raw enough. I said it 2 seasons ago. I think they're a little bit rigid now, Arsenal. I think they're too kind of robotic at times. The best Arsenal, and the team that I seen in that first season in the title race, I saw a team that were hungry for goals. I saw a team that would fight in the very first minutes of a game to get 1-0 up so they could go and score more goals. I saw a team that if they were 2 or 3-0 up, they still wanted to score more. They wanted 4, they wanted 5. I don't see that with this Arsenal team. I see they get 1 and they go, well, yeah, let's sit back now. Let's defend. Let's just sit. And that's how you lose things. That's how you fall away. That's how you fail to get over the line. Because you have that mentality of, oh, well, we're in front now, so let's just all drop off and go, oh, we'll sit behind the ball. You can't do that in a title race. You can't. If you're not blistering enough in attack and you don't scare teams enough in the attack, you're not going to be competing. And you're not going to be good enough. They've dropped off. They're 15 points worse off this season than last season. They got 74 points this season. They're quick to call out the Liverpool team for not getting anywhere near Arsenal's points tally last season. Well, they have a cheek to talk about Liverpool because they got nowhere near it either. And then they have the cheek to go, oh, we're still progressing. You're 15 points worse off than last season. And then the whole adage, oh, we've got injuries and that and the other. Every team has injuries. It shows that your squad's not good enough. That if you have injuries, your squad's not good enough to get over the line. This magic squad that Arsenal had that they'd built, well, it's clearly not good enough. Because when there's a couple of your star players, your top players, out, there's no one behind them that can get anywhere near enough. And that's the simple fact of it. I get that there's injuries. I'm not doubting that. I'm not saying that didn't impact Arsenal. But what I'm saying is, it clearly shows your overall squad isn't good enough. And when you're in a title race, you need your squad to step up. You need your squad. You need players off the bench to go, well, yeah, I'm going to come on and score a goal. I'm going to come on and do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You need impact players from the bench. When injuries were rife in the Arsenal squad, and I'm not saying they weren't. They were. But it showed that their squad wasn't good enough overall. I mean, 15 points less than last season is a clear drop-off. It's a clear drop from where they were last season. That's the God's honest truth. That's the honesty of it. And yeah, maybe their run to the Champions League semi-final, maybe that was their priority. We talked about Man United and Spurs' league form being impacted by the fact that they got to a European final. And maybe Arsenal could say that. But the best sides don't sacrifice one competition for another. The best compete on all fronts. The best compete in every competition to be the best and to compete, and they have the squad to compete on all fronts. You can't one week go, oh, we played a Premier League game, we're tired now, so we're not going to perform great in Europe. Oh, but we do perform great in Europe. Oh, well, we're tired now for the weekend. Well, you're a professional Premier League footballer, you should be able to play 3 games a week. And if not, you rotate the squad. You bring someone else in that is able to do that, and you keep rotating and keep that. That's how you build a squad. That's how you make successful campaigns. You have that rotation in your squad. Arsenal, one, haven't done that enough. Maybe Mikel Arteta doesn't trust his squad, but what excuse can he have? He's had 5 years. He's built this team. If they're still not good enough and still not the squad that he wants, then I don't know how long he's expecting to have, because he'll probably have to wait another 5 years for that to get his squad that he wants. I don't understand it. And, I don't want to be incredibly harsh on Arsenal. I don't want to come out and go, oh, well, Arsenal are rubbish, Arsenal have not done it, bottlers. I don't want to use that, because that's just a very unintelligible way of arguing a point. You give people the facts, you say what you think is the case, and why you think it's the case, and you give an intelligent argument. And I think, not to big myself up, but I think I have done that. I've given you the reason as to why I thought they weren't there this season. I think their squad isn't good enough after the injuries. There's a clear drop-off. I think they're too rigid. They're not blistering in attack. Those are intelligible, tangible ways you can say Arsenal have regressed. They have. I mean, they're worse off last season points tally. Everybody is. Bar Liverpool, who have actually, I think, equalled where they got last season, or maybe bettered it a little bit from where they were last season. So, funnily enough, Liverpool have actually improved overall, but still, it's not the 80 points that Arsenal got last season. But that's maybe what makes it a poor campaign for Liverpool, does it? Yeah, Arsenal struggling to find that balance. I've said it before. In the first season, they were really good attacking, a little bit weak, leaky defensively. Last season, I think they were probably in their best position they've ever been, in that they were incredibly good up front. They had some great attackers. They were great in front of goal, and they were very good defensively. This season, they've regressed, quite ironically, on the field as well. Their attack's not as blistering, and they're defending a lot more, and they're defending well. They're one of the best defensive sides in the league, but they're doing that at the expense of the goals, and I think that's an issue, certainly for them. Next to our champions then. So 6 out of 10 for Arsenal, and there's only one team that got higher than a 9.5. There's only one team that got a 10, and that is our champions, Liverpool. 10 out of 10. I mean, what do you say about the champions? What an unbelievable first season for Arne Slot. I mean, the transition from the legend of Jurgen Klopp to the untried, the untested Arne Slot in the Premier League, it was seamless, that transition. And many teams, many have said it, many have exclaimed it, many have talked about it. But just talk about it. This time last season, everybody was going, oh, Liverpool are going to drop off, Liverpool are going to be outside the top 5, Liverpool are not going to even battle for Champions League. They underrated this squad so intensely, and I'm 100% honest, I didn't think that Liverpool were going to win the league this season. As a Liverpool fan, I did not in any way think we would win the league. No chance. I don't think many Liverpool fans, if any, thought Liverpool would win the league this year. I don't think anybody would have predicted the season that they've put together under Arne Slot this season. A team that was built by Jurgen Klopp, but coached to success by Arne Slot. That's the way I look at it. And I'm not talking about the Klopp year before and all the trophies that Klopp won. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that new crop of players, that mix of experience as well, with the Alexander-Arnolds, the Robertsons, the Allisons, the Van Dijks, the Salahs, that are all there before from the first title in the first Champions League and all of that. I'm not talking about those players. I'm talking about the new players. Your McAllisters, your Diaz, your Gakpos, your Gravenberchs, your Szoboszlais, Conor Bradley, Ibrahim Konate, kind of Jarell Kwanzaa, all of those players, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, you can name many of them, all of those players that hadn't won a league title before. That's what I mean by coaching them to success, those players. And they weren't able to get over the line last season. But look at what Arne Slot's done. Year of improvement, a year of a new idea system, not massively different to Jurgen Klopp, very similar, but there are some tweaks, there are some differences clearly in the way that Arne Slot plays. I think a Liverpool fan called it. It was, and I saw a photo of it yesterday when at Anfield, when Jurgen Klopp and Arne Slot had their photo in the tunnel or in Anfield somewhere, and someone put below it the Paisley-Shankly photo of Bob Paisley and Bill Shankly, and I think they called it the modern Shankly-Paisley relationship, and I think it's hard to argue with that, because Bill Shankly built the club, Bob Paisley picked up all the prizes and picked up a mountain of prizes afterwards. It's hard to argue with the fact that Jurgen Klopp changed Liverpool's idea system from doubters to believers, and then one thing's on the way, and handed a new great side to Arne Slot, the new rejuvenated side, and Slot has coached them to success in his first season. I mean, it's hard to argue with that comparison. But I think, it means so much more than just a title for Liverpool. We talk about teams, love the title. But when Liverpool were confirmed champions at Tottenham at home, they caused an earthquake. They caused a seismic event. If there's ever a way to categorise how much it meant to those Liverpool fans, they had a Richter scale level event at Anfield because of the bouncing, the celebrating that day when they were confirmed champions. And I wouldn't doubt that it would have happened today with our trophy parade at Liverpool. But a first celebration in front of fans for a League Champions win for 35 years. 1990 was the last time Liverpool celebrated as champions in front of their fans and lifted that trophy, lifted a league title in front of their fans. 35 years. And, with that trophy parade, well over 1 million people showed up in the streets of Liverpool, and what an unbelievable event it was for Liverpool. But overall, quite an incredible job that Arne Slot's done this season. And he still hasn't even got his own players in. He bought one player, and that was Federico Chiesa, and he's probably not trusted him all season to start as many games, and his fitness has probably been a problem. But he hasn't got any of his own players he wants to take this Liverpool team forward and improve the squad even further than what they've achieved this season. And, they're not stalling on this champion status, Liverpool. We've seen it in the last few days and the last couple of days, yeah. Jeremy Frimpong, apparently the deal's done. They haven't announced it yet, Liverpool. That's the reports. Milos Kerkez is in talks. Florian Wirtz is the big talk, that it was all hot-footed to go to Bayern from Bayer Leverkusen, and apparently Florian Wirtz is very highly linked and very heavily linked to be moving to Liverpool. So the champions are not resting on they're not resting on their success, and they're not resting at their laurels. They're moving quickly to improve their squad even further than what it was. And I'm not saying they're the best team in the world, because they're not. They're not the best team in the world. They're not the finished article. 84 points is a very good first season under Arne Slot. And it just so happens this season they were much better than everybody else. That's not Liverpool's fault. That 84 points is enough to win the title, but 89 wasn't before for Arsenal. That's not Liverpool's fault. Jurgen Klopp got, 98 points one season and didn't win the title? 97 points, and didn't win the title? 93 points and didn't win the title? I mean, if you want to talk about teams that have been hard done by massive points tallies that didn't get them a title, Liverpool are your prime example, not Arsenal. Liverpool are your prime example, and it's a title that those players deserve. Trent Alexander-Arnold, boyhood Liverpool fan, and all the controversy about him. And I think it was incredible to see his moment for Liverpool yesterday. But overall, Liverpool, for all those players that were so incredible and were amongst the best team in the world for Liverpool a number of years ago. Virgil van Dijk, Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Alisson, Salah, that core group of players that were there and done it and have been here and done it before with the title and the Champions League and other trophies. I think they deserve that second kind of title, those players, to reach the new heights, to be known as legends, and that's what they deserve. And unbelievable from Liverpool this season, just unbelievable. And they get a 10 out of 10 because what more could they have done? League form, they couldn't have done any more. Certainly Liverpool this season, and maybe their Champions League was a little disappointment, but they got PSG here in the final and they could be the winners of it. Disappointing in the FA Cup and losing the Carabao Cup, you can lose a final. So they've still had a great season, Liverpool. Unbelievable season outside of the Premier League, but also in the Premier League. Unbelievable. And they are the champions. Right, that is my ratings from all 20 Premier League clubs and their seasons that we have seen. The Premier League season review. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, I think we're live at 4:30 it is it tomorrow? 4:30 it is, where I'll be reacting to my Premier League predictions, pre-season predictions that I made early in the season. So we'll be reacting to that video and making some mad comments, because there are certainly some mad predictions in there, I can tell you that much. But thank you very much for joining me for this last, well over an hour now. It's great to have you with us, and thank you so much for watching. You can watch it again if you're watching this a little bit afterwards. You can go back, scroll back, it will be a video on demand, a VOD, on the channel for the rest of however long we wanted to keep it there. But that is our Premier League season review. Liverpool get a 10 out of 10, are the only side to get a 10 out of 10 for their season. But everybody else deserves the plaudits for the seasons they've had, those that have had success. It's been a season to withhold, and certainly, I gotta tell you, some have called it a boring season. I said it, I think it was the Championship playoff final. In my reaction, I said, sit down and shut up. And I tell you that again, sit down and shut up. To anybody that said this season's been boring, it has been far from boring. And we hope that the next season is just the same. The new season starts on the 16th of August. So not far away, 82 days away I think it is. And we'll have the fixtures for the new season in mid-June. So in about 3 weeks' time we'll have that. But thank you very much for joining me for this Premier League season review. I hope you enjoyed it. What do you think of all my ratings, and who do you think deserved higher, who deserved lower? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.